If we can cut the music.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this Tuesday evening. Maybe before we leave, we may get some rain, so hopefully. Before we start, let's go ahead and stand and pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I will be introducing our fire chief here shortly. Joe Mera has come and will be sharing with us a little bit about chemical hazards and also about fire extinguishers. But a couple of administrative things at least to bring up right now as far as our club finances. Right now we have about $926.19 as far as in our treasury. So we're still receiving some income from the trauma kits that we developed. Recently we had several people come and we've made probably another 20. So we do have those available if anybody wants to buy it. Again, the block captains again, if you want to donate, if you're fine to do so. Otherwise, you're entitled to have one if you desire want a kit. Just a little bit about upcoming events. September, block captains and radio communications training, and then in September, I think Bill Hilchey.
No, that's not till December.
Okay, so October will be our Stop the Bleed.
Stop the bleed, right.
And those, and that'll be done by our medical personnel. Okay, Brian, do you have some other announcements you want to make?
Sure.
Hey everybody, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming out tonight. Okay, so just real quick, real quick. For those of you who have the hats, how many have hats? How many wearing your hats? Man, you guys failed the test. Okay, so the hats, a lot of us have had these embroidered. Elaine Dawson had been doing that. I believe she still will continue to do that. If you like to have its N2N on the front and back of this one, that's a $5 donation. I believe it would go to the charity that we are kind of funding this year, the Forward Paths, I believe it is. Yeah, so that helps raise money for that. And then also for the lime green vests, she does the embroidery. If you haven't already seen it, it has your name on your first name and your last name initial on the front, and then on the back spells out neighbor to neighbor. That's a $5 donation, and that would also go towards that fundraiser project. So if you have, shoot me an email. You guys probably all can find my email address somewhere. It's all over the place. Shoot me an email if you want to get your hat. I'll get kind of a little list, to Elaine and kind of get the next batch done. As far as the upcoming live radio exercise, how many radio people do we have? Please raise your hands. And keep your hands up. How many medical people do we have? Keep your hands raised. Okay, so not this coming Thursday, the following Thursday, August the 11th, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to give this radio communication exercise another shot. You might have seen in the last email that I sent out about this. It was like the announcement of this meeting and a little blurb just saying, hey, we're going to give this another shot. Gary and Carl, they believe they have the issue resolved. The placement of the antenna at the new command center. Our command center is not going to be in the kitchen for the primary location. The concept here is Gary will have it set up at his house. He'll have the antennas in a different place to where we can communicate with the entire community via radio now. So a much better situation. If it's here, he can't communicate to the Stony Brook section of the community. So it poses a problem for us for part of the community, Section 5. So we're going to give this another go. Carl and Gary, they're going to try to run some communication tests around the community before that Thursday to make sure that this is going to work. Because we don't want to waste your time. And it was a bit frustrating. We couldn't hear each other. Static, static, static. I was at Gary's house with his radios, and all we could hear was static and maybe a word or two out of any conversation. Ed D. Giovanni, he's back here, I think it's like Nature View or something. We couldn't hear him ever. River Ridge. Okay, I knew it was one of those back there.
That may be a good thing.
Don't ever give him a microphone. Don't tell him I said that. Okay, so that's really that's all I've got for you guys. I won't take up any more of our chief's time here. Larry, you want to do some introductions?
You know, part of the interest right now is to learn a little bit more about fire extinguishers and also about chemical hazards. I put out an example of a guy that tried to improve on mixing ammonia, Clorox, and Drano in his toilet, hopefully to make it flow better. He didn't live through that experience. He died. So there are certain things to be very mindful. Another thing is like if you see an empty bottle with aluminum foil in it and some liquid, don't go around it. It could be Drano and aluminum reacting, and it could cause an explosion. So hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about that. First of all, a little bit about Joe. Mera was appointed chief this year in May. Congratulations on that.
Way to go.
He's been a member of the Leesburg Fire Department over 20 years. He rose through the ranks. He holds an associate degree in paramedic science from Kaiser College, a bachelor's degree in fire science from Columbia Southern University, a master's degree in executive fire service leadership from Waldorf University. And in 2017, graduated from the Executive Fire Officers Program. EFO graduate, he is honored to join a group of fellowship that makes less than 1% of senior leadership. He has also had extensive background in fire service instructor and taught the department at several different levels. Chief Meyer's philosophy is that the initial firefighter training and continual ongoing training to include live fire exercises and the most effective way to save lives on the ground. Professional memberships also include the International Association of Fire Chiefs and the Florida Fire Chief Association. So thank you for coming.
Well, that was the first 10 minutes of my presentation right there, so I've got nothing else for you pretty much in that. So it is an honor to be here. Just reiterating, I've been the fire chief for about 3 months now. I've been here 20 years, and the previous fire chief, he had the foresight. He knew the day he was leaving. He knew well ahead of time. So for the last over 2 years, I've been running the fire department. So he didn't want my first day as the fire chief to be the first day as the fire chief. So there was some comfortability I had. The last 3 budgets I've submitted to the commission. I've been writing policies, procedures. So he knew enough to let go, to let me kind of get my feet wet. So props to him and kudos for him for doing that. For you, you're not getting a brand new fire chief. I know the song and dance. I've been here, so there's some good in that. So I want to thank you for inviting me out. We're going to talk about a couple of topics. Let me just tell you this. I've got a few slides. I'm going to try to keep my whole presentation down to less than about 45 minutes. Because the 45 minutes, adults can no longer take in information. So I'm going to try to keep my part to that much. If you have questions, we can take this all night. I don't care. But my thing is about 45 minutes or less, and questions we can go as long as you guys want. Fair enough?
Good.
If I get too long-winded, because I will, just give me that or, something like that, and I'll just quit talking. Fair enough? All right, so let's talk about fire extinguishers first. So, before we talk about fire extinguishers, you have to understand fire extinguishers are designed for a type of fuel, right? There's different fuels. different fire extinguishers. So, in fire, there's three components to a fire. We call it a fire triangle. There's three sides to a fire. There's fuel, whatever's burning, heat, and oxygen. If you take away any of those three things, the fire goes away, right? So those are three very important things. Oh, I'm looking. Sorry.
That one's instant up there.
Gotcha. I'm a little slow on the uptake. So that's just a diagram of the fire triangle, right? If you remove one of those legs of that triangle, the triangle collapses. These are designed to work on one of those legs, depending upon what's burning. So here's a disclaimer. These are not designed, any extinguisher is portable, they're not designed to put out big fires, okay? We call them, they're designed for incipient stage, or the first stages of the fire, right? If you had a whole room that was involved in fire, none of these together, any combination, is going to put that fire out. Okay, so they're just for small incipient stage fires. And there's a few other things that require for this thing to be successful. You have to know what you're doing with the extinguisher. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to probably get yourself hurt, and less important, the fire will probably get bigger. All right? It must be within easy reach, in working order, and fully charged. So, you have to keep it where you can get to it if you're going to use it. If you keep it in a closet behind some books or whatever, you're not going to grab it. So it has to be within easy reach. It has to be fully charged and in working condition. The operator, this is very important, which will be you, hopefully or hopefully not, must have a clear escape route that will not be blocked by fire. In other words, you have to have a path to get out if this thing doesn't work out for you. And it might not always work out. So you have to make sure that you don't add to the problem by becoming a victim. So you have to make sure you know the way out. And the extinguisher must match type of fire, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Certain extinguishers work on certain fires, and other ones make the fire worse, believe it or not. So, here's a very common extinguisher you probably might find in the business somewhere, or this one right here, or even that one back there. They all have more or less the same pieces and parts. There's generally a nozzle, which is what you aim the agent, the stuff inside, where you want it to go. There's a plastic strap, this guy right here. His only purpose is to keep this pin from coming out. This plastic strap breaks very easily on purpose. So if you grab the pin and you pull the pin, this strap will break. It's not a zip tie. Zip ties are tough to break. This is designed to break very easily. The pull pin we talked about, the lever, the body of the extinguisher, and then all of them have instructions on them, on what to do. And more importantly, they have what fires they work on and what they don't work on, which is very important, and we're going to get to that. Here's just some up-close shots of that green tab that will break when you pull this pin. When you pull that pin, if this were to fall, if you were to break this and this pin were to fall out, if you were to just actually bump this, it would discharge. And once these guys are discharged, they're either used or they're not used. There's no been used a little bit. So if you bump it, for whatever reason, it discharges a little bit, it has to be either replaced or recharged. These here have a powder inside them, and there's an O-ring inside there. And once that powder comes out under high pressure, it damages the O-ring. So if you don't use it all, eventually the insides will leak out over time. So use it or you don't. So, classes of fire extinguishers, which matches classes of fires. You see here, A, B, and C are the most common that you'll deal with as a residential owner of a house, The D and K, we'll talk about those. You're less apt to see those, although you probably have come across them at some point. So, Class A. A few things. Class A is always a green triangle with a capital letter A, or any combination of those. On these guys, it's not colored, but it's a triangle. Class A means Class A fuel. Class A fuel is ordinary combustibles. So wood, paper, plastic, pretty much anything in this room is a Class A fuel, right? Class B fuels, those are flammable liquids and gases. So gasoline, LP, liquid propane, natural gas, oil, paint thinners, acetones. If it's liquid or a gas and it burns, it's a Class B fuel, needs a Class B extinguisher. Class C. A Class C fire is an energized electrical fire. That means something that is electric, that is energized. So if this monitor were to catch on fire, that would be a Class C fire, and it requires a special type of extinguisher for that. So here's bonus points. If Class C fire is an energized electrical piece of equipment, if I unplug it, what class fire is that now?
A.
Exactly, Class A. When it's not energized, it's no longer Class C, it's probably a Class A. A exception would be those big transformers on top of telephone poles. They're full of oil. So when it's energized, it's Class C. Don't even get near it. But once you de-energize it, or the power company does, it's probably a Class B fire. A little trivia, so now you know something that everyone else doesn't know. Class D. You probably won't encounter this, but these are really special fires. Class D are combustible metals. There's actually metals in the world that burn. And the interesting thing is they burn, they're very, very violent and hot. And what we would normally do to put those out makes it 1,000 times worse. You probably, I don't imagine there's any of these in Legacy, but let's say someone had a home mill, somebody's turning metal, a metal shop, he might have shards of certain metals that could, under certain conditions, catch fire. For the fire department, and I've experienced this before, at least when I was on the fire truck, which is many moons ago, there were certain parts of certain cars that were made from combustible metals. Way back in the day, I think it was VW Bugs had the block was made from whatever it was. I experienced it in a Ford Probe. It had in the ignition system, the lock, I don't know what it was, but we went to a car fire, just a car fire, right? Nothing to get excited about, run-of-the-mill car fire. What do we use? Water. Water is the worst thing for a metal fire. I don't think you could, other than maybe throwing gasoline on it, water is the worst thing. So we opened up our nozzle, and it just had this huge, like fireworks, a spray of sparks, and just this very violent reaction. So combustible metal fires they're pretty sporty. They're fun. And they require a special extinguisher. And finally, is this Class K. Class K is a fire agent used for commercial cooking applications. So this guy here, either one of these two here, if you're frying whatever in your skillet at the house, right, and you forgot, you walked away, the skillet catches on fire, these would do a great job of putting that skillet fire out, done and over with. No questions asked. You've got this much grease in a 10-inch pan, that's probably not even a quart of grease, right?
Right.
But now imagine at McDonald's or whatever fast food or any restaurant that has these huge cooking oil vats. And there's probably 50, 75 gallons of oil in there, and for whatever reason it catches on fire. There's so much amount of heat and that big, large amount of fuel, because that cooking oil is fuel, that it will, if you put it out with one of these guys, in a few moments it'll reignite itself. Because there's so much energy in that oil. So they developed it's called K. It's for cooking fires, usually in commercial kitchens. It looks like something like this, but it makes a crust on top of the oil and it keeps the oxygen out. So this guy might put it out for a minute, 30 seconds and all, it'll come right back. That purple K will keep it out. So you probably won't see it in homes, but when you went to a restaurant, I guarantee you the hood systems in the back, they have these things. Where's my engineer at? Fire protection engineer. Am I right? Anything I said so far is wrong. All right, so there you go. I got a reference now. So we talked about those. So before I get into that, let's talk about some extinguishers and some agents and just some kind of nuances. A Class A fire is ordinary products, right? Wood, paper, anything in this room for the most part. What do you think the best thing for putting that out is? Water. This is a water can, right? We had these in the fire truck. These are awesome firefighting tools. We use them. Works great on it. A Class B fire. So a spill of gasoline or leaking natural gas, if it catches fire, let's talk about gasoline. That one's an interesting one. What would be good to put that out? CO2. We can't use water? No. Why not? So water is heavier than fuel. So if you had a container of fuel, for an example, and it's burning, if you add water, water will go to the bottom, it'll fill the container up, the fuel will spill over the edge, and the fire just got bigger. So you can't use water on a Class B. And then Class C, we talked about is what?
Energized devices.
Electrical equipment, right. So, but if you de-energize it, it could be an A or it could be even a B. So there's some overlap in what works and what doesn't work. Some stuff works really good, some stuff works okay, some stuff is heck no matter what, right? So, on this guy here, so this truck, this extinguisher has ridden in a fire truck. You can see it's all kind of beat up. It's been used in plenty of fires. But it has a symbol for the Class A fire. And of course it's torn up where you can't see it, but just trust me. There's a symbol for a Class B and a Class C with a red line through it. In other words, don't use on B or C, only A. So it's fireman proof. We just look at the fire, look at this, and okay, don't use this one. So for Class A fire, this is great. We use these inside structure fires a lot, house fires. Now this guy, let's do this guy here next. This is what you might have in your house, right? Probably you can get them at Lowe's or Walmart for 20, 30 bucks maybe. I don't know inflation, now maybe it's more, but somewhere along those lines. If you look here, it has the symbols. It has B and C. It does not have A on it. So, this guy will probably do marginal on a Class A fire, but when they tested it, it didn't do good enough to be rated as a Class A. But B and C, all day long. Now there's this guy, who's very similar, just a little bit bigger, and he has a hose. So outwardly, no difference, just a little bigger maybe. But he has A, B, and C. So why is that?
It's good for any kind of fire.
It's good for all three, A, B, and C. Wouldn't put it on D. If I had to do on a K, I'd take my chances. But this, although they look the same, this one has an additional rating, this one doesn't have. So why is that? Well, for one thing, this has got about twice the amount of agent this one has. So that could be why they rated it as such. Other difference is, and you would never know unless you read the label, is there are two different chemicals in these two. This is good old baking soda. Just like you have in the kitchen, you probably put in your fridge to keep the odors out of your fridge. It's just that. This is monosodium phosphate. Just a different chemical. Works the same, it looks the same for the most part. This is kind of white, this is kind of yellowish when it comes out. But this was able to be rated to do A, B, or C, whereas this is only B or C. So, that's where these things kind of, it benefits you to kind of read a little bit and kind of figure out what, if you're going to purchase one, what it does and doesn't do, okay? Generally, the bigger the extinguisher, the more fire it puts out, because it has more agent here. This has got, I think, 4 pounds of chemical. This has got, I think, 8 pounds of chemical. So it'll put out more fire. So, does anybody cook here out of their house?
Oh, sure.
So if you cook and if you fry, it behooves you to probably have an extinguisher handy, right? And if you're cooking, you're not doing a commercial cooking, you just have maybe a skillet of grease, you're frying some pork chops, whatever, that good stuff, then something like this probably work just fine for your house, right? The big difference here is, even if they were rated the same, this guy's a one-time use. Hopefully a never-time use, right?
Right.
This is a one-time use guy. Once you use it, you throw it away and that's that. This guy is refillable. So if you burn your house out multiple times, you can have this thing refilled. It's your choice. I correlate this to your spare tire in your car. Most of us have probably a small spare tire, right? Not a big spare tire like they had back when I was a kid. There's benefits to having that small spare tire, right? Smaller, you probably won't need it, more trunk room, but you can't go but 50 miles on it, you can't drive at 55 miles an hour. If you had a full-size spare, you continue your trip, doesn't matter. So, as a consumer, just make some decisions, think about it, and make a choice. So, how do you use one? If all else fails, even firemen, it says right here what to do. All these labels say exactly what to do. And if I had to grab that extinguisher back there, I could probably guarantee it says the same thing. The mnemonic is PASS, P-A-S-S, pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. They want you to pull the pin. I'm not going to pull the pin, but you pull the pin, right? This, or in this case, this guy. You aim it at the base of the fire. So, if this is on fire, and it's going up and it's rolling over the ceiling, you aim at the base of the fire, not up here, here. You squeeze the handle, and you sweep side to side. When you're sweeping, imagine if you were blowing off your driveway, right? You start at one end and start blowing and working your way until all the leaves are gone. You don't start in the middle and then go to the other end and then go back here. You're just going to blow leaves everywhere. Same thing with these guys here. You want to start at one end and just, if this thing was burning, you want to start here, work your way across until you basically sweep the fire right off the fuel. And that's it. Pull the pin, aim, squeeze, and sweep. Now, the key is this only lasts, it depends, probably 8 or 10 seconds of time and it's done. And I guarantee you, you'll think it only works for about a second. You'll swear it's only a second, but it goes just that fast. And that's good and it's bad. It's good because when it's done, so are you. If you didn't get it out, it's time to go. There's nothing else to talk about. Show's over. Get out of the house and whatever happens, as long as you're alive, that's all we care about. So that's good. When it stops spraying out, you have to get out at that point. If it sprays longer, you get a little more time, you can do a little bigger fire, but we prefer you to just don't add victims to a fire. So, if you feel confident to use it, and you use it, when it's done, there's nothing else to talk about. Get out. So that's how we do it. We pull the pin, we talked about that. This little plastic tab will break. Aim low, so aim at the base of the fire. Squeeze the purchase extinguisher. First off, if you have a fire, always dial 911 first. Right? This is the most important extinguisher you'll have right here. Call for help. People will wind up digging for their extinguisher, trying to figure out how to use it, and time is steady ticking. And although now I think it's changed, but it used to be every minute fire doubles in size. So if you spend 2 or 3 minutes trying to figure out where it's at or which pin do I pull and all this, you're taking my time away from me being able to put it out. So, first off is that. Call 911. Get me started, get my guys started coming, and if you think you want to take a shot at extinguishing it, then feel free. But get the ball rolling. Next, make sure the house is being evacuated. All right? If there's no one in the house, and my wife would probably kill me for saying this, there's nothing in the house we're dying over. I know pictures, I get all that. But I promise you, whoever's picture it is would rather have you alive than dead. So maybe you have a spouse that isn't as mobile as you, or maybe you're the one that's not as mobile. Just get out. Get out. Insurance will replace things, but there's no insurance in the world that replaces you as a human being. It just doesn't work that way yet. Make sure the fire is small and not spreading. If you see the fire and it's one size, you go get your extinguisher, come back and it's much bigger, you're done. Just leave it, get out. Make sure, again, you have a safe path to the exit, not threatened by the fire. So never let the exit get between you and the fire. Make sure that you always have a clear path. If you want to take a shot at putting this thing out, that's great, but make sure you know exactly how to get out. What's going to happen, these agents here, they're kind of like, well, that one's baking soda, but it's kind of like talcum powder. My mom had a thing, she had a puffer of talcum powder. It's super light, right? And it's under high pressure. So when you discharge this thing, it's going to fill the room with agent. It's going to just float and it's going to obscure your vision. So my point is, there's a door, you go to using it, you turn back, you might not see the door because of this stuff just floating around in the environment.
Wow.
And it tastes salty, and it's not pleasant to breathe in. It's not toxic, it won't kill you, but it'll make you cough. Now you can't see the door. Now your vision is obscured. Now you're coughing. You're on the road to panic. And then the next thing you know, you take off that way when the door was that way. Okay? True, it's voice of experience telling you right there. And then, most importantly, just know how to use one. All right, if you don't know how to use it, it's okay. Let it burn, call us, you're safe, that's all that matters. Right? There's nothing on my fire truck that can undo you being burned in the fire. So that's what's most important. Here's a few nevers. Never do this. So, if the fire is spreading beyond the immediate area, or if it's large, write it off. Just get out. Get out, get out, get out. If the fire blocks your escape routes, we talked about that, make sure you get out. If you're not sure how to use it, just leave it and get out. And finally, if you don't think it's designed for that type of fire, if this is what you have, I don't know why you have it, but let's say you have this, and it's a grease fire, and you know this is not for that, then you just get out. The most important message I can give you is just get out. So, a little diagram of the escape route, the fire, and you. He's not very happy, it looks like, so just make sure you know your way out. Okay? All right, so that's the first part, the extinguishers. Any questions on extinguishers I can answer you before we move on to the chemicals stuff? Yes, please.
I have the one with the gauge on it.
Yes.
For many years.
Yeah.
The needle's still in the green. Is that still good?
Yep. So, you might buy some that don't have a gauge and some that do have a gauge, right? As long as it's in the green, you're good to go. It still has pressure in it. If you notice it started bleeding down in the red over time, you should just replace it. Or if it's something like this, just have it refilled. I'll tell you this, if you find yourself bored and want something to do, every month, grab your extinguisher and shake it upside down. Over time, it'll settle and it'll become hard. So there's a long nozzle in here. So there's probably about that much agent. The rest of this is nitrogen under pressure, right? If it gets clogged up where it's all caked up, when you open it, nothing comes out. Or maybe just the air will come out, not the spray. So just every once in a while, give it a shake. You can feel it. If you had them for a while, you might not feel it shake it the first time. But if you just hold it, you'll hear it and feel the weight shift. I just tell you it's fluffed. So on the fire truck, because these guys, well, I have one on my trucks, they're 20 pounders, they're really big. But they ride in that truck all day. So they're constantly vibrating, and that's getting constantly packed down. So once a month, the guys have a rubber mallet, upside down, they bang on it in the bottom, they feel it flop, and they're good to go. Easy peasy. Yes, sir.
Where would you go to have it recharged?
So there's at least, I think, 3 companies in Lake County. There's one That's, I'm not recommending anybody, but the one that we use because it's closest, because, you know, I'm lazy. There's a company in Leesburg called A-Line. Make sure I'm not lying, yeah. That's who we use. But there's a couple more. I think there's AAA and there's B Safety, like BE Safety, I think. And you can buy them there. They'll recharge them for you or whatever. Yes, sir.
Why do some have to be inspected with a certificate on it?
So a residential one doesn't really need to be, right? You know, you bought it. This is mainly for commercial occupancies, that someone from that business is coming by, checking it, make sure that the gauge is good, it's in serviceable condition, and so on. Want to do a spot check? Let's see. We'll get somebody in trouble tonight. So, okay, B Safety. So this is that other company I was telling you about. So someone came out and inspected it. It's ABC, and the date, I don't see the date on it, but what they should be doing is, on this side here, this is a monthly inspection record. So usually a maintenance person or whoever's in charge will come by every month and just say, okay, what's in the green, the tag's there, it's not damaged.
Sure. Did you say every month or every year?
Every month. Every month the owner or the maintenance person inspect it visually. Every 5 years, they have to be taken apart and re-inspected.
We have one here that's dated 2021.
Yeah, you're fine. Yep. Someone should be, and it's just a visual inspection.